There's probably going to be a lot of videos coming out right about now on this very same topic. Because for all of us, it's been exactly a year that people across North America realized the COVID-19 pandemic. So I'm making this video because I want it to serve as a time capsule, something I can reflect on in 5 years, 15 years, and even farther down the line than that, of what we've gone through in the last 365 days. It's crazy. In a sense, it feels like just yesterday that all of this, and I want to say started, but in reality, it was more realized than started. It started well prior to us actually paying attention to it. But I want to document right now where we're at, where we've been, what this is like, and hopefully how we get out of this sooner than later. First thing I want to discuss is regrets and first realizations. I recall about a year ago hearing about this pandemic thing, and Asia was really struggling with it, but it doesn't really happen here in the United States of America, right? It never gets here. And even under some significant warnings, I mean, I'm not saying even society as a whole. I'm singling myself out right now. I didn't take this seriously enough. Certainly our society did not either. But I think looking in a mirror, we all understood that something might be going on, but it had never impacted us before. So why would it now? I wish we could go back on that. And first realizations, I think you go right back to March 11th, 2020. Something about the NBA shutting down on a dime. Like, sports aren't everything in life, but when a major sporting league, and the NHL followed suit right after that, and spring training shut down a few days right after that with Major League Baseball, when professional sports of all things instantly shut down on a dime, you know something is terrible. They don't do that every day. Something also about Tom Hanks on that night of March 11th from Australia, publicly posting on social media that he had tested positive for the coronavirus, which, yes, it is still called, but that was more the name of it back then than COVID-19. It was that night, March 11th, for me, that the first realizations happened, and it hit like a ton of bricks. There were other things along the line of quarantine orders and lockdowns that were imposed, and certainly death tolls and numbers over time that would put you back in your seat for a second. But that first realization for me was the night of March 11th. Now, in terms of scary points, I would say the first one that I want to isolate on is seeing grocery stores and supermarkets and retailers completely sold out of some bare necessities: bread, toilet paper, milk. And panic does set in a little bit. First off, what were people doing hoarding all that stuff? Do some people literally still have here a year later, like, way too many rolls of toilet paper because they had the opportunity to buy 400 and they did? Why toilet paper of all things? Why was that our barometer? But it was. And it scared a lot of people. It for whatever reason, knowing that you couldn't go to the supermarket and get some certain things, it scared a lot of people, myself included. It was kind of the beginning phase of realizing, how's everybody going to play through this? We're all connected. We're all on the same team. How are we going to participate with each other through this? And that's my next point. In the last 365 days, I'm not going to diminish from all the amazing things that we've seen of people doing good for each other, especially in the medical field, essential workers, first responders. Don't even take that away at all. That's not what I'm talking about here. What I am talking about is a huge level of selfishness. Rules are put in place. Suggestions. Here are things you can do to make this situation better for yourself, those around you. And we're not talking about sending people off to a battlefield. We're basically saying, can you just stay home? And there's a level of selfishness that people at first could not comply with. And from selfishness to, stupidity. And I think those two things are similar and related, but also different. I go back to the stupidity aspect of this and remembering watching last year, 2020, college kids saying they're not going to give up their spring break for a pandemic. That's never going to fully sink in with me or sit well with me. But I'm not saying all young kids are stupid. This is probably more of a lack of maturity and maybe a risk assessment. These young people had even already realized that maybe their chances of survival were far greater than other people. But then that takes you back to the selfishness aspect. This is not about you saving your own life. This is about you helping others who are way more in jeopardy with higher risk factors. This is about you helping others. So I'll move on from selfish and stupid, but misinformation is another part of what we've dealt with in the past 365 days. And social media is a huge part of it and a huge problem with it. You can certainly understand that where some of this misinformation has come from in the first place is the root of the problem, but no question has been exacerbated by people believing everything they see on their phone or on Twitter or what their friend shared or a conspiracy theory about how to not get sick. And more people are thinking about COVID-19 and talking about it clearly than anything ever before because we're all dealing with it at the same time. But all of this clutter and all of this many times garbage, and to sift through it, then the onus is on you because a lot of things were not made clear and concise and uniform to an entire country, let alone a state or a county. The onus is on you to figure out, well, what's actually right and wrong here? We were not the United States of America for most of the last 365 days. And I'm not saying that we are still. And that brings me to one point I have to make on all of this. And I hesitate to because it's not my area of expertise or sphere of interest even. It's really not. But tying politics into a pandemic, I guess politics can be associated with literally everything. They have a lot of connections in a lot of different ways, but tying politics to wearing a mask or not, and considering mask wearing or not as a freedom versus a responsibility, it's just, I cannot believe we went down that road so far and for so long. We're trying to get out of this all together. And if it's said this is the way to do it, and we've seen other countries and regions of the world do it that way, why wouldn't you want to follow suit? We're in a race. We're not even in a race. I shouldn't have said that. But you kind of feel like you are in this race to get out of this. And you see 4 other people ahead of you, and you see them doing something specific, and you don't want to do it? You don't want to do the same thing? I'm not just talking about wearing masks. I'm talking about the fight over politics as it relates to masks. And related to politics are all the new challenges that have come out in the last 365 days. At first you think, well, it's going to be hard to shut everything down. How on earth do you shut down all these businesses? How do you shut down airports and public transportation? That's simple. That's really simple. All of you don't come to work. Done. I just did it. You can close stuff down really fast. The challenges come in how do you reopen things? What's deemed safe? What's essential? What's not? When do you reopen? At what pace? How do different counties and regions do this safely? The complications and the challenges also lie in the disease itself. New variants coming out. How about vaccines? Now that is an area of all this, which has been a huge bright spot. And we don't pay enough attention to it, but it's a miracle that multiple companies with multiple different remedies to all of this were produced in less than a year. And I mean way less than a year because they didn't get started right off the bat. Testing took time to do this properly. Last thing you want to do is make the situation worse. Approvals, manufacturing now, and distribution. And we're making progress. I certainly wish it were going better. But here we are playing the waiting game, and it will. At some point, believe it or not, this will all feel like a distant memory, even though right now it certainly feels like we're getting better, but still in the thick of it. But yeah, complications of vaccines coming out, and then who gets it first, and then how long does it take to get everybody? And then once you're vaccinated, does that also mean that you're in the clear and live life normally again? Not completely, not entirely. Just so many complications and challenges. And I guess that's the overall theme here, is that you feel like in all of this, once you got past one challenge, oh, great. I didn't think about that. Then you get past that. Oh, yeah, I never thought about how we're going to get past this point. All of this is a bit uncharted. There have been pandemics before, but maybe not in a modern era and in modern times. So physically, nobody's trying to get sick. And everybody's worried about their physical health. But I also think that mentally, the toll of all of this year, for some, it may have taken a separate year off the end of their life. Really. People lost jobs. People lost family members, like literally lost them. People lost friends that they couldn't agree with anymore. I don't mean, passing on. Some did. Some people's lives changed in the course of all this and the battles that were put up, and it's just amazing the pain and the grief and the difficulty all of this caused when you have people who are also getting no vacations. They're staying at home. They're not seeing their friends. They're not even seeing coworkers. They're not living a normal routine life that realistically we were all designed to operate in. There's a certain rhythm that none of us, you watching this right now, are you close to the rhythm that you had in 2019 of life, work, and balance, and family, and everything else? I'd be surprised if you just said yes. Nobody really is. And we'll inch closer and closer towards it, don't get me wrong. But nobody is in a spot that's still familiar 1 year plus later. And so my last point is this. I hope we're on the backside of this, and I hope we are relatively done with this quite soon, because the toll is still mounting not just in terms of the effects of COVID and deaths, but the mental toll, and also the real fear of this happened so fast. This caught us by surprise. We were not prepared for this at all. It's amazing because I go back to the very first point I made. You don't wake up every morning planning that your house is going to burn down, but you also know in the back of your mind that if there's a fire, you know who to call, you know who's going to rush over, you know who's going to do their absolute best. And I don't think any of this, none of us were going to beat the pandemic in the United States of America. We were not going to be unscathed. Don't have that thought, because it was not going to happen. This spread rapidly across the world. We're all in the same community, the global community. It was going to happen here, whether you like it or not. Certainly didn't need to happen to the degree it did, I feel like. But the real fear is, what if there is a next time? And what if it's worse? And this one's pretty bad. I've never thought of passing along something while you're not feeling symptomatic, or something that, could literally take your healthy body over in a matter of 2+ weeks and have your life ended, and could be so transmissible and could spike like it did in the winter months. It was bad. Don't get me wrong. But you'd have to think there's opportunity for worse. And how are we going to respond next time? Look, how would you grade our response in all of this? Not good. Let's hope that's not the case. I don't mean to be doom and gloom on this, but I feel like it's important years down the road when you watch this, that we've been through some serious shit in the last 365 days, all of us. And I credit a lot of people for fighting through it as they have, doing the best with what they can and how they have. But life's going to get a whole lot better, and we are going to appreciate it so much more if it can revert to anywhere close to what it used to be before 365 days ago.